at first, actually, I didn't really even care for that kind of stuff.
We're driven by the search
But over
for better.
time, I'm like, wow, I don't care about cars,
but
you know, a
when it comes
nice
to
house,
hiring,
wow, I really want to spend a lot on a house.
The
So
best
I
way
did.
to search for a
And I think
candidate
that's something
isn't to
that,
search at all.
as we, especially as you're older, you're literally like,
Don't
your
search
health,
match.
and I really love Die With Zero and
With
the
Indeed.
mentality of like your health gets worse over time.
If you need
So,
to
like,
hire,
use
you
the
need
money while
Indeed is
you
your
have the
matching
best
and hiring
energy,
platform.
the best health available.
With over
Versus,
350
like, I think
million
people get it backwards. They're like, make all this money so
global
you can enjoy it when you can't really
monthly
physically use a lot of that stuff.
visitors,
Why don't you care? You know,
according
I
to
think what it
Indeed
is
data,
like what really matters to each of us,
and
how do
a
we
matching
better
engine that
alignment
helps you find quality
within that.
candidates
And that's definitely
fast.
Thinking a lot
One of
about
the
my
things I
wealth
love about
and the
Indeed is
time
that it
spent.
makes hiring
Welcome,
all in one
millionaires
place so
and
easy
future
because it's
millionaires.
fast.
You're listening to the
quick,
Millionaires Unveiled
and
podcast, the show where you'll
there
hear
are
the
millions of
stories and
candidates right
interviews
at your
of
fingertips.
everyday millionaires. We'll
And
unveil their decisions, their
listeners of this
strategies,
show
and their
will get
portfolio
a $75
allocation.
sponsored
Now to
job
your
credit
host, Jace
to
Mattinson.
get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com.
Welcome back to another episode of the Millionaires Unveiled podcast.
Just go to Indeed.com/unveiled right now and support our show by saying you heard about
This
Indeed
is
on
the
this
podcast where everyday millionaires share the behind-the-scenes stories of their financial journeys.
Indeed.com/unveiled.
We are your hosts, Jace and Stacy, and today we're diving
Terms
deep
and conditions
with
apply.
a guest who built an impressive business empire from the ground up. Our
Need to
guest will
hire?
reveal the strategies and investments that skyrocketed his success,
You need
share the
Indeed.
strategies that he overcame, and offer insights that could reshape how you think about entrepreneurship and wealth building. So plug in and get ready to learn how someone like you and me turned a big dream into a thriving business. And don't worry, we keep it family friendly while we dig into the real stories of success. And today, Jace, our guest is a friend of yours.
He is. He's a good dude. I'm excited to have him. And yeah, it's gonna be a great episode. He's got a net worth hovering probably around 200 million. He's got a valuation on his business that he owns 60% of that's around 300 plus. And then as we get into some details with him, he's got quite a bit in cash and some other investments and some real estate. So going to be a great episode with him. Can't wait for it. It's been a long time coming. I did want to address one thing real quick. I had a few people write in about this and make some comments about one of our previous guests around his startup. And for those who aren't aware, it is very possible. In fact, it's very common in the VC world to have a company that has a valuation of, let's just call it X, and does not make money. It's unprofitable, but that valuation is still there. While it is on paper, it still is part of, certain individuals' net worth. And that's just kind of how some of the VC world works. And maybe I need to do a bigger episode. I spent some time in this way back early days of my career. And trust me, I had a hard time reconciling how something could have value and be worth something when there was no actual positive cash flow or earnings. I struggled with that. That's in particular why I quote unquote left that world in a way and decided to not pursue a career in kind of the VC and tech. But it's very common in our society. And as we see, some companies that bleed money for a very long time end up figuring it out, turning a profit and becoming extremely profitable, such as, your Facebooks, your Amazons, etc. So at any rate, I'm super excited for today's guest. And without any further delay, actually, before we get into that, I'm still looking. Noah's not there yet. He might be soon. Still looking for our guest for episode 400 who's worth 400 million or more. Also, if you'd like to be on the show, send us an email, millionairesunveiled@gmail.com. Super excited for a lot of the guests we have in the pipeline, but always looking for new ones. And without any further delay, let's get right into the episode with Noah. Noah, do you want to just give us a little about your background and what you're up to now?
I was able to meet Jace, who is the man, years ago on a cycling event. So lucky to be here. My background, worked at a day job at Intel, hated it. Was fortunate enough to be number 30 at Facebook, helped build Facebook. I think it's like $1 trillion business. Mint.com, number 4, that did pretty well, sold for 300 million. And then I've gone on to build AppSumo.com, which is the number 1 software deal site. This year we'll do somewhere top line around $100 million. And I got a book called $1 Million Weekend. So for people curious how I've been able to do it a few times.
Nice. I can't wait to get into all these details. And the funny thing, you say we met at a cycling event, but we probably should note that if it weren't for that cycling, actually, if it weren't for a few prior encounters and cold emails to Noah that never got responded on, the cycling event probably would have never been, at least for my attendance. But that's a story for another day. Anyway, Noah, let's get into all these juicy details. But before we do, what is your net worth?
Oh, okay. Can I give you two?
Sure. Yeah.
So I think that there's two net worths, right? So like with yours, you have your, actual liquid net worth, and then you have your like equity net worth, right? So AppSumo valuation, we're not public, but let's say it's 300 million. I own 60%. So you could argue it's 180 million dollars of equity net worth there. And that's the majority. That's probably like 90% of my net worth. In terms of like liquid cash net worth, today it's 13,703,000.
Nice, dude. Congrats. And you kind of gave us the company situation, but of the 13, how is that liquid portion invested? And do you own any real estate or have any other small investments?
Yeah. So the actual breakout in cash is 22%, real estate is 19%, equities is 37%, and risky is 23%.
And when you say risky, is that angel investments? Is that crypto? What does that look like?
I thought you said anal investments. I was like, dude, what is this? This is like getting out of control. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what's an anal investment? Because I could get into that. It is funny too, as I'm getting 42 now, and I'm so excited about them. I got married. We're about to have a kid next month. I'm actually actively simplifying my allocations and my investments. So risky. Let me just pull up my categories. Risky for the most part is just anything that could go to zero or I'm learning. So a lot of it's in crypto. I bought crypto in 2015 and I just kept holding. I never sell it. So that's a big portion. Watch collection. So I have a pretty significant watch collection. Some real estate projects that are more risky, like invested in a church. And then startup investments. So I've done, let me see, startup investments. I've done, give or take, 15, like $5,000 to $20,000 different startup investments only in companies that I personally use. So like LMNT, the electrolyte powder, I put in my water here. I invested, I think, like, what did I do? Like $10,000 into those guys. So that kind of comprises my risky category, but it's either I love the company. Crypto, I like the technology, or it's something I want to learn from.
In those smaller, riskier investments, like the one you just mentioned of 10,000, are you doing that on like a crowdfunded platform, or are you doing that as a direct investment because you've got a relationship with somebody there and you can kind of make a small bet like that?
Yeah, and dude, what's crazy about these is that I think when I was hearing about angel investments or investment in private companies in the past, it sounds so sexy, but they are the worst. That's like, I think you hear like, what if you would have invested in Google at $100, you'd be a billionaire now. And the reality is like almost none of those work. They take 10 years or so to actually pay out, if at anything. And so out of these 15, only one, which was teachable.com, I put 10,000 in and it got out 60,000, which is pretty good, but that's the only one I've ever had in maybe 10, 15 years of doing this. Most of these deals, I see the product and I just reach out. So
wow. So you just get on their cap table with a direct wire, few legal documents, and you're in at 10 grand, 20 grand or whatever.
Yeah. Like some of them I'm using, I'm just like, oh, this is such a cool product. So Huckberry, it's kind of like AppSumo, but for guys clothing. I like their site. I like that it's similar to AppSumo. So I just reach out. Some of them, one or two will contact me, but that's generally not the norm. And I've gotten rejected a ton. Like I try to invest in Stripe Series A. They said no. There's been a few others. I kind of, you forget them, but it's just, I reach out and then, through, I think we use AngelList a lot of times to facilitate the paperwork, but some, it's like MoonPay or High Shirley. High Shirley's non-alcoholic wine or low alcoholic wine. I just love Justin Mayers. And I was like, hey, I saw this new thing you're doing. Like, let me give you money.
Huh, that's really unique. When did you start doing those kind of riskier angel investments?
When I had money. I mean, I think the thing that was always interesting for my money was that like my best return was in AppSumo. And it's to this day, it still is, right? Like I put in $50 in AppSumo to start it. And, I made $3 million cash last year.
Yeah.
Right. And obviously there's expenses. So that sounds sexy and it is a lot of money, but there's definitely, I have a lot of expenses under that to even get that money. But yeah, I think what it was there's just companies I wanted to learn how they operate was actually the real impetus. So I think Buffer was one of my earlier ones. And I was like, I just want to know your numbers. So I invested, $10,000 in Buffer, and then they make all their numbers public. So I was like, that's not helpful because like they shared whether you invest or not. I didn't have to invest, but I think part of it was, can I associate with someone? Can I get access to things? Can I learn how they run their businesses? And for like $5,000 or $10,000, like there's a company called Third Web. And so when they do crypto infrastructure, And Diary of a CEO, Stephen Bartlett, was one of their investors. I didn't know that, but I invested in them, and it's like, oh, cool. Can you introduce me to him? Or some of these companies, I like getting their monthly updates to see like, okay, what do they do in marketing? What are their performance numbers? And it helps me understand for AppSumo, and it's also just
Do you have any in public equities, publicly traded companies?
Yeah. So I'll tell you, my traded that's evolved over time. Right now, my equity position is 37. Wow, holy shit, 37%. And so that's a mix of direct stocks that I thought I was a good stock picker, a lot in index funds. I can pull it up if you're curious which ones. I'll tell you the advanced thing there, which is interesting, is like the direct index funds, like parametric.
Mm-hmm.
That?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. For the audience out there, when you're starting out, you buy index funds. Like, here's the ones you buy. And I think my index funds are like mostly global, or it's mostly US 60, global 40%, 90 stocks, 10 bonds. But with parametric, instead of buying an index fund, you actually buy the stocks themselves and create your own index fund. And you could do that at certain sizes. And so you can do tax loss harvesting directly. Whereas when you buy an index fund, you can't do that. But I basically, every time I want to buy a stock, if I do, and I haven't bought a stock probably in 2 or 3 years. And mostly it's because I'm focused on AppSumo. And so this stuff, I put it in the index fund, but whenever I buy a stock, I buy the comparable amount of an index fund just to be like, hey, index funds are better. And that's worked out really well. Just trying to have that mindset. But yeah, most of it I would say is an index fund. And some is, I got lucky with like NVIDIA and Tesla. I got pretty lucky with those.
How, as a business owner, especially with such a large business that you have, how do you decide how much to pull off and do in some of these other spaces when you know your biggest return for the most part is going to be reinvesting back into your company and growing that?
Yeah, it's more distractions. So I'm selling almost all of my real estate. So if my real estate percentages, I think allocation, I think my target now, it's at 20, but I could see that going down to 15 or 10. And it's more just distractions. So like, I'm not really investing in any new startups or trying to look for it. I'm not trying to do more real estate. I probably am more cash heavy for people at my age than almost for savvy investors are probably way more cash heavy, but it's because the AppSumo revenue creation and business creation is just much higher upside of control for me and predictability.
Yeah. So did you employ any type of formula, I guess, over the last decade to get to that point of peeling some of that off and taking these other investments? Or was it just, hey, this sounds interesting, I was distracted, and now at your age, you're pulling back saying, I don't want to be as distracted with these other things?
Yeah, I mean, my philosophy has always been the same, which is there's active income and passive income, and spend your time on the active and spend your time where you're an expert, right? Like there's people like my father who have insomnia and he just watches CNBC stock market all day. And so I was just like, can you just like choose some stocks for me? And he's like, yeah, grab NVIDIA. This is like 2 years ago. And I was like, okay. So grab some NVIDIA. And he's like, yeah, grab Chevron. I'm like, Chevron. And so in terms of AppSumo, though, my philosophy has been the same from 15 years ago to where it is today, which is the best investment you can get is generally going to be in your own business. So even if you are just getting started, create an LLC, right? Like from a tax advantage point, it's the best thing you can do in America. And as well as having your own business, the way I've approached it is I want to spend everything in AppSumo that's ROI positive up until there's none left, and then we'll take distributions outside of that. So the hiring, our ads, if we do any acquisitions and things like that, it's kind of paralleling the Amazon approach. If you look at their approach over the years, it's instead of getting paid or doing all these things, it's like, how do we invest so next year is bigger? So my approach has been almost always like, how do I spend more in the business? Because you also get a tax advantage too there, where you're not taxed on that money you take out. So the idea is like, how do I spend everything I make that seems like it'll be a good return on AppSumo, and anything left, then I'll take it off. But that's really created that each year our company gets better and better.
It's a really unique approach. And I want to ask, and I ask a lot of entrepreneurs this, because especially in your situation where you were at one point working as a W-2 with a couple of different companies that you mentioned, granted they were tech startups and you're, probably betting on some of the upside, but what is that like transitioning from going from a W-2 in these companies to then starting your own with $50 and growing it into what it is today?
I was doing probably what I think a lot of people are doing at those points, right? Where they're more mindful of the stocks they're picking and the index funds and the passive income things, thinking that real estate is great. And people who say real estate's stupid, I think they're stupid. Because I'm like, I think I was also nervous that as my business started growing that I would ruin it. And so I wanted to have more hedge, right? Like, so my net worth, the one I told you, doesn't include our AppSumo cash position, because that's to me the business, and I cannot keep it separate from my personal net worth. And I think I was just more cautious that if AppSumo went away, what do I have to show for it? And I think now that we've been doing this 15 years and we promote software deals and we have an amazing team and the partners are good and all this stuff, I feel more confident investing more into the business. And I think earlier on, it was like, okay, I probably should get a few other companies because, really when you're investing in another startup, I'm like, okay, cool. I have another person working for me, but I don't have to do the work. With AppSumo, I'm doing all the work with all the team. And so I think over time now, though, I'm like, AppSumo's doing well. I don't really need that much more money. Let's just reduce the amount of things that I'm doing and simplify, I think is the more latest approach in the past, give or take 2 years.
Have you taken the approach that Peter Thiel and a few others have done and put any of those investments through, say a Roth where you're never going to be taxed on it at this point?
I've considered that, and there's a lot of modern tax loopholes, and I love them. I even wrote a book. I think it's not, you can't get anymore, but it's like things the rich don't want you to know. So there's a lot of things like that. You also can't get that money until you're 65. And I was like, I want the money now. I want to be able to have it now. And I'm more interested in tax loopholes and things like that are like 1 or 2 year timeframes. And as well, they're all legit. So like people are like, well, which one? So, an interesting one these days is buying energy credits. So you can buy energy credits. Literally, you can go look this up on Wall Street Journal, and you can use it as a tax offset within businesses. If you have your own business, you can do your own pension plan. So it's called defined pension plan. And again, these are things that I'm just kind of busy with my family and my getting excited to be a father and running AppSumo. And so to save an extra 10% for me didn't seem worth it. Where maybe in the past I would do stuff like that.
So let's walk back to the early days of Noah. Give us a little bit of history of growing up, what your mindset was to get to the point where you're working at Facebook and working at these startups. And I think it's very, very public about your exit at Facebook too. And I think that's interesting to get into, how much essentially you had left on the table that now you've recreated and then some, through your own company.
For my 50-year-old sexy people out there, I'll tell you the thing that I've gotten into in the past, really since COVID, was just enjoying money. I think that's not talked about. I think we're like 99% of the content is like, how do you make it? How do you protect it? How do you enjoy it? How do you get to levels of wealth? And then you get to level of wealth and I'm still penny pinching. And
how did you make that switch?
A few things. One, try before you buy. So, I work stuff and I grew up with I grew up in a Jewish household, which is like all about practicality. It's just like, everything is like, I don't know, like, God, my mom, here's an example. She thinks going to get, they're millionaires and they think going to get Starbucks coffee, at this point they're millionaires. They didn't grow up like that. She thinks going to Starbucks or wherever is expensive. So she bought like her own Mr. Coffee machine and makes her own coffee. And she's like, it's not better. I don't like the taste better, but it's cheaper. And I don't know. I think that's just how I was conditioned. And when COVID happened, I was like, I'm going to just start trying it more. Not to spend money just to show, but it's like, let me see how this feels. So try renting a Ferrari. You can do that for a few $100. Try renting a mansion. You could do that for $1,000. Try living in a different country. I did that. And then you can start figuring out, like I tried buying a Rolex. I was like, At first, actually, I didn't really even care for that kind of stuff. But over time, I'm like, wow, I don't care about cars, but, a nice house. Wow. I really want to spend a lot on a house. So I did. And I think that's something that as we, especially as you're older, you're literally like your health. And I really love Die with Zero and the mentality of like your health gets worse over time. So like use the money while you have the best energy and the best health available versus like, I think people get it backwards. They're like, make all this money so you can enjoy it when you can't really physically use a lot of that stuff. And so like yesterday I bought it's not flexing. I'm just trying to share. I bought my wife a new car and it seemed, I'm like, dude, do I really want to buy a new car? And then I looked at my net worth and I was like, 13 months, that's a lot of cash. Let's spend it, And then like, not only spend it, let's go spend it on my wife, who's like, the best person. Or my brother, I'm buying him, he's weird, he's a weirdo, but he wants like very specific bike parts. And so I was like, dude, let's get you some cool bike parts. Whatever ones you want, I'm going to buy you bike parts. And that's been a good practice. But yeah, I tried it before I bought it. Look at your net worth and just look at it. I think when I look at it every single month, I have on noahkagan.com, you can search. It's like I have a free spreadsheet, how I track it. It's how I've been doing it for 15 years. And that helped me feel more confident. And then third, I went to therapy, which sounds kind of funny to pay money to talk about paying money. But it was like understanding, why am I not spending this money? Like, what would it do for me? What would it not do for me? And I guess I was conditioned that materialism won't make you happy. And there's probably some truth to that, but materialism also can make you super happy. there's a lot of amazing benefits of having money. But it's also not doing it at the expense of living life. So that's for my 50-year-old good looking people out there. For the young ones, I grew up in a normal household. We didn't grow up in like a millionaire household. My mom's a nurse. My stepdad's a software engineer. Grew up in the Bay. I think the thing that was unique that people can copy from my story was that I kind of didn't know how life was supposed to play out, but I wanted to be an entrepreneur and I wanted to be rich, but I don't know how people do it. And that's even why, I wrote the book about it, about like, how can you do it? And I think my secret was that I always felt day jobs were risky, but they're safe places to create businesses. And so that was my whole thing, was at these day jobs of Intel and Facebook and Mint. I was always starting businesses. I was always just trying different things. There wasn't even social media at this time. So people were like, you had a network, you had a lot of rich friends. It's like, I was living at home with my mom. Like, I don't know what advantage I had from that, like her gym buddies, but it was the reality that I just kept trying. Like I launched events. So I just hosted like coffee meetups called Entrepreneur 27. And then I put on a conference because I was like, I'd like to go to a conference. So I put on Community Next. And then I launched a website for Craigslist for college students. And I think that's part of what I think is people miss out in entrepreneurship, is that you have to practice it. And it's a skill you develop. Like, Jace, your first business isn't your last business. It's like you have experience, you have understanding. And when you have a day job and you've gotten fired like I have, you realize your day job can be taken away from you, and your own business, you have a lot more control over your upside, which is unlimited, and your destiny. So that's why I encourage people, even if you have a day job, like start entrepreneurship to learn more about yourself and at least create some opportunity that if your day job goes away or you want to change it, you have that opportunity to make that decision.
It's a really interesting perspective. And I think, even at the time you were doing these, I mean, the term probably side hustle wasn't even out there, but essentially that's what you were doing, right? You were working a 9-to-5, call it, or even in the Bay Area, maybe it's a 9-to-7, but then spending time launching these other businesses. What do you think the most you spent on any of these to launch?
Yeah, I'll tell you, very little, if nothing. It's going to sound ironic, but all the ones where I've spent a lot of time and money are the ones that didn't work out, and the ones where I'm like, let me just throw this thing on this online or just do something and see what happens. So let me be specific. This conference I put on, I think the best businesses, I know the best businesses are the ones to solve your own problems, period. My wife and I had a baby shower a few weeks ago, and she was like, oh, I really want balloons. Jace, you have like what, 10 kids?
5, but yeah. And we're done.
You're halfway there. Dude, balloons for baby showers are like thousands of dollars.
I know. Crazy. It's a crazy industry.
And you know what? My wife then went and bought a balloon making machine and balloons and did them herself for $50. That, there's a process and there's other things you can get into. That's $1 million business. And that's kind of the exact same parallel I was doing myself, where I wanted to do a conference. I was like, okay, cool. I've never done one. I found a free venue. And then I was like, okay, well, let me see if I can sell tickets. So I just started messaging a bunch of people, see if I could get tickets. And then I cold messaged a bunch of speakers, see if they would come speak. I didn't have an email list. There wasn't social media. And I just did it. And I put on a conference I wanted to go to. And it turned out I made $50,000, but I didn't put up any money up front. Right. And so you can really reduce the risk of entrepreneurship way more than people expect. Because everyone out there, Jace, they're like, yeah, I know, but mine takes money. No, I know, but mine takes technology. I know, but mine takes this. It's like, no, it does not. You can reverse your business validation process and starting businesses by trying to see if there's demand, trying to get pre-orders before you start anything. And, there's other businesses. Example is I built a site called betarcade.com. I spent $100,000 on engineers, and we spent 6 months to build it. And it was a sports betting website. Now, at the time, I still don't gamble. I didn't really watch sports. And, so building a site like this is probably the opposite of what, I would recommend. And after we launched, no one came. Right. And so it was these things where I spent a lot of time building something to then find customers. It always didn't work out. But when I said, hey, let me see if I can get customers first, then build, like AppSumo, I built it literally in a weekend, like no joke, in a weekend. And it was very clear there was like insane demand for what I created. And that's why, 15 years later, it's, it's still working and people seem excited about it.
Were you employed at that time when you built AppSumo?
Yeah. So I've never started a 7-figure business without a day job. So with AppSumo, I was consulting for speeddate.com. Don't go to the website. It sucks. But I was consulting. No one got a date. It was just like, I love the guys that work there. The guys that work there actually went on to build Udemy. And they've all been, they're all buddies. And we did some good stuff at Speed Date, but it's just not a site that really I don't know if we actually help people really get dates, but I was consulting for them, getting paid $5,000 a month, which I thought was a ton of money to do product management. And during that time, I got excited because I said, hey, I just love promoting things in marketing. And I think I love software and I love deals. Like maybe I can do something here. And so I tried a few different iterations until I found the AppSumo version of solving that problem.
We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. One of the things I love about Indeed is that it makes hiring all in one place so easy because it's fast, quick, and there are millions of candidates right at your fingertips. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/unveiled. Just go to Indeed.com/unveiled right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/unveiled. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Did you go to college at all?
Yeah. I went to UC Berkeley in California.
Okay. So you get a degree and then you start kind of doing these, but you knew you wanted to be an entrepreneur from what, high school or even younger?
I just liked money. I think even today, sometimes I like money too much. And it was just, my dad was an entrepreneur. I have a stepfather and a biological dad, and he was an entrepreneur. And I think there was just something about his freedom, his flexibility schedule, the amount of money he could create. Like, you're really in your own business, there's not a limit. But in a day job, unless you're in sales or you have equity, it's very hard to create a lot of upside. And I would say in college is when I started just building more things. And it's like a sport. I don't think people realize, like, business is a sport, and a sport you can get better at if you practice. And so I've been practicing a lot. But you can't only read books and listen to podcasts. Like, you eventually have to get up to the plate. You have to get in the kitchen. You have to get in the pool. So in college, I launched a site called comegetused.com, which was a book exchange. And then I launched ninjacard.com, which was a discount card for local restaurants. And it's not that I had some special ability more than anyone else. Like, yes, I'm smart, but I just did the effort. And that's available worldwide for free. And you just keep swinging and swinging and swinging. And over time, you find the thing. And what doesn't get talked about in success, Jace, success comes through time. I think that's the part that's especially missed out on, and also the biggest opportunity. It's like, once you find anything that works, whether it's power washing, whether it's painting, whether it's cookies, whether it's software, your wealth and your success comes through sticking with it for an extended period of time. But you can find out what works pretty quickly.
When you started AppSumo and you're still employed, I got two questions on that, actually. The first is, do you remember what your net worth was at that time?
So I was 28, 29 years old. I think my net worth was actually about $1 million cash.
Wow. Okay. So you were still employed. You start this business with $50, but you got $1 million net worth at that time from everything else that you were hustling on. When did you feel comfortable to go full-time in that business and be a full-time operator and not be employed anywhere else?
Yeah. So the backstory for people curious, like, how did I get $1 million before 30 cash? One, I had day jobs. I didn't have some secret that's not available. Number one, day jobs. Number two, I lived insanely cheap. I just lived insanely cheap. I lived on floors, like literally floors for a year. I lived in my aunt's basement for a year. I lived in my mom's house for 2 years. And by doing that early, it gave me enough capital so that I'm like, cool, I have money. I never have to really worry about money as much, even though I still live cheap for another decade. And the other thing was, like, two of the projects, like the conferences I did, and one of the companies I started, which was a gaming company, ended up like putting off like $250,000. Both of them did $250,000 over in my 20s. So by 30, I was able to do that. And then your question was,
as AppSumo, and once you started that, because that's the one that you're CEO of, that's growing rapidly now. When did you feel comfortable making that jump from being employed somewhere to running that business full time and not being employed with a day job at all elsewhere?
Yeah, I call it my freedom number. So that's the number you need so that you can feel confident to make the decision to quit your job. And everyone, you should have, if you're in a day job or you want to be able to do your own thing, write that number down, right? So what's your living expense, what's your saving expense, and what's your entertainment expense? And for me, it was $3,000. And once I was consistently making that number through AppSumo, which I think it took maybe 4 months to get to that number where I felt confident, then I quit. And I did the same thing when I was at mint.com. I built these, he would argue he fired me. but I built these Facebook games, and they were making pretty quickly $10,000 a month, which was above the freedom number again. So I quit. He fired, whatever, to go do the Facebook games. And so I think when you actually realize the freedom number for yourself, it's much smaller for most people. And look, if you have a family, right? Like if you have 2 kids, which I can't, it's harder. Give up a Netflix show and focus on that freedom number. And then you're like, oh my God, maybe I'm not as far away as I think. And maybe it's more achievable, and great. And it was cool to get to those numbers and then make that decision that I was like, yeah, I can just do the thing I want to do for the rest of my life. And in the past, I would say, Jace, what's the common way of teaching that is like through passive income, right? Can I get enough real estate? Can I get enough dividends? Can I get enough of this? And I did do that, right? I did try to get real estate, and I just think you're competing in a fair market, and you need to try to figure out how you can compete unfairly. And real estate to me now is like there's very limited upside. The appreciation's, depending where you are, is not that great. And so I think you have to figure out how to do entrepreneurship to have advantage in the society.
Where do you go from here? Is there a target number? Is it a target growth that you want to hit with your company? Or I know you're going through an interesting phase of life where you get married and having a kid, and that changes a lot of things in perspective too. But I'm just curious, does that, you had the freedom number to leave the job. Is there another number down there that you're working towards now?
So for all of us out there, I think it's figuring out what really matters. And I don't have ambitions to create like $1 billion company. I don't care. Like it doesn't get me. I think it's like what gets me out of bed. I'm financially, I'm honestly good. I'm trying to sell my real estate. I'm trying to start spending more of the capital I have available on my friends, on my family, on charity. I think the only number, candidly, I'm trying to get to is what amount of money do I need to be having to consistently fly private? That is the number I'm meeting with my wealth managers to figure out. Because it's a total luxury. I know carbon offsets, but if people get a chance to try it once in their life, I think they understand like, wow, this is really luxury. And so I want to understand how much cash I need it through AppSumo, through my personal, to be able to do that for the majority of my flights. So I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's like 50 million. I don't know if it's a certain amount of cash flow per year, but I think that's the only number. And I think by the time I'm 50, I'm 42 right now. So I think in the next 8 years, I'll be able to achieve that.
That's awesome. When you were going through, all of these different businesses, I guess my question is, when you had a couple of those hits where you were above that freedom number, did it ever go back and retract enough that you actually went back to another job? Or was it just, hey, I'm going from job to job because I left or I got fired, or I am going to go pursue this, but maybe it's not working out, so let's go back? I mean, what was that kind of that navigation back between kind of these 3 or 4 major kind of day company jobs as you're starting all these businesses?
Yeah. So I got fired. Once I got fired by Facebook, I did these conferences, and the conferences were really profitable. And I regret not finding someone to run them. And I just ended up stopping it and went and got a job at mint.com. And now I don't regret it gigantically, but someone copied my conferences and went off to sell them for $3 to $4 million a few years later. So,
oh man,
it's okay. I mean, there's probably a lot of times it's worked out for me. There's been a lot of times it's worked out, and there's been some times like, the Facebook thing, it would be worth $1 billion today. The amount of equity I had 0.1% of the company. And so I haven't created that much for myself, but I've created more than enough that I'm I feel blessed. I truly do feel blessed and lucky that now I do. I think at the time for a lot of my 20s, I felt resentful and angry, and you guys, like, they took this from me, and how am I finally going to get rich? And it took time to come peace with that and get the money, and it's a journey. It's a journey, dude. And so these times where it didn't work out, it felt like a lot of my 20s it wasn't working out. Like, okay, cool, like Facebook, I'm gonna get rich here. Then it didn't work out, and then I started these conferences, but I don't want to be a networking conference guy. And then I'm at Mint, but it doesn't feel right. And then I finally got these games, and the games, I'm like making games for people. And then eventually around 28, 29, 30, it's like, oh, maybe I can just promote stuff and like get deals on stuff. And like, I love deals, and that's what AppSumo is. It's deals on software for entrepreneurs. And it's been nice to find that, but it took time. And I think my word of the year this year is patience. So I'm trying to remind myself that, a lot of these things in our life, it does take some time.
Prior to COVID, as you were getting into, hey, maybe I should, reap the fruits of my labor a little bit more and spend a little bit more, did you increase your lifestyle at all through, your late 20s and early 30s and even mid 30s as you were making more and earning more? Or did you kind of keep, rice and beans lifestyle for quite some time until COVID.
Literally until COVID, man. It's kind of crazy relative to my net worth.
Wow.
I mean, the other thing with AppSumo is for the first, if I would have kept day jobs, like I probably would have made more than my entrepreneurship for the first 5 years. Like first year of AppSumo, I don't think I paid myself anything. Second year of AppSumo, I paid myself $40,000. Third year of AppSumo, $70,000. Fourth year, $100,000. And I was making six figures before that in a day job. So because I was reinvesting everything back into the business, only in year 5 or 6 did it really get big.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
No, I mean, just to give you examples, when I moved here in 2010 to Texas, my rent was $550 a month. And then I don't know, I think it's feeling worthy of what we buy and then enjoying the money you have. Like I think for everyone out there, like what's one thing you can do for yourself with your money today? Like, can you get an ice cream? Can you treat yourself? So I like, as I've gotten older, I do now buy Rolexes to commemorate moments. But generally what I do is I buy 2 of them. So it's commemorating, like my friend got a house. So I was like, oh, let's get a Rolex for you. And when I get my house, I get a Rolex for me. And we have matching Rolexes. My friend sold his company. So I have matching Cellini Rolexes. And it's actually kind of fun because then we can wear them together. But I'd say literally up until about 38, I was living in an 800 square foot house that's got its ant and cockroach infested. The walls are falling down. It was $500,000. And that was up until just a few years ago. And, driving, Mini Cooper for a lot of those years. It's not that, look, my life wasn't tough. I had food, I had walls, I had water, I had a toilet, I had internet connection. Like it was good, but it was just treating myself probably how I felt. And I think it's just over these past few years, I'm proud of myself for what I've been able to accomplish. And I'm proud of myself for enjoying it and sharing it. But that definitely took a very long time.
It's pretty wild to think about though. Like 20 years. I mean, call it from you graduated high school through college, all those years. 20-year grind, living way below your means. I mean, most people don't realize that or see that, right? They probably see, especially with you and social and your new book, $1 Million Weekend, they don't see all that behind the scenes, that it was a 20-year overnight success story, basically, to where you are now.
Yeah. The thought that comes to mind, Chase, that's kind of crazy about that is I brought when I was dating my wife, I brought her to my house. I have this very nice house, like multi-million-dollar house that like every other person I bring over is like, wow, man. And I think it's also feeling proud of ourselves. Let's just take a side quest for a second. Be proud of yourself. For all of us. I'm telling that for me. But I brought her over and she's like, oh, this house is okay. I was like, what do you mean? Like, I've worked so much off for this house, like this freaking house. And she's like, it's a house. And I know I found the right partner. And I think this, if everyone out there wants a life upgrade, get a great partner. Probably one of the best upgrades you can have in your whole life. And she's like, and she said, me and our daughter, we don't care about. I was like, oh, what do you care about? She's like, we just care about you. Yeah. And she's like, we want, we want you to be happy. We care about who you are as a person. Yes. It's nice that we have, some amenities and we have these luxuries, but it's also like, we'd rather just be with you than this stuff. That's also part of it, right? I think I've interviewed a lot of billionaires on my channel for YouTube, and I see a lot of these people out there. And I think where I'm coming to the reality, and yes, I have money, so it makes it a little easier to see this, is that we're chasing so hard. One, I don't think I definitely did not enjoy a lot of those years. And I regret that. And also these people get to these levels where if people, even today, if you look at your net worth, you probably hopefully have a lot more than they even need or they're using. And maybe they don't need to be chasing or working so hard for things that don't matter. And I think that's what I'm kind of coming in my own transition in this decade. Okay, yes, it's cool to say you have real estate. I own 5 houses, right? Like these people love bragging how many doors they own. Like, dude, no one cares. Like, why don't you care? I think what it is like what really matters to each of us, and then how do we have better alignment within that? And that's definitely where I'm thinking a lot about my wealth and the time spent.
That's awesome. Well, let's wrap up with some rapid fire questions. And these are going to be fun because you've already alluded to a few of these a little bit. What's been the most expensive pair of pants or shoes that you purchased?
Dude, I just bought Nike SB Jarritos on StockX for $770. So those were the most expensive shoes I bought. They're like these cool, Jarritos, like the Mexican drink.
Yeah.
It's Nike shoes that look like it. And
What?
I saw them once.
That's cool.
I was at the outlets with my wife and I saw them in a store. I was like, oh, those are sick. And I go in, they're like, yeah, $700. I'm like, no way. And then I don't know. I think in things in life, if you think about it, like don't buy it maybe right away or earn it. But then if you're still thinking about it sometime later, and I was like, I really like those. And my wife's like, dude, just enjoy yourself. So I love them. I think they look super cool.
That's awesome. What about the most expensive car?
I thought you were gonna go watch the car. I literally just bought a car yesterday.
Maybe I should ask watch or car.
I'll do both because it's interesting. And dude, like I you can see I don't even really wear watches. But I think they're cool mementos. The car I just bought my wife a new Defender, so that was $79,000. And then the watch, when AppSumo hit 50 million in revenue, I wanted a watch that was a 2010, the year we started. So I bought a Rolex Smurf 2010, which is a white gold blue Rolex. It was 50,000.
Okay. I'm with you on the mementos. I've done the rings for each of my kids, but I need to graduate maybe at some point and do these watches because I do like watches. I don't wear them that often, but I've done a little bit similar, not to your level yet, but I did buy.
I was so embarrassed. Oh, what'd you buy?
Well, I did. I bought I golf, right? So I bought a Tag our golf edition watch when we sold our previous company. And I love it. I mean, I wear it all and it's sporty enough. I feel like I can wear it around like on the daily if I don't wear my Apple Watch. So, but I like that idea of like commemorating things with those types of things that maybe you're not going to wear very often, but you still have that symbol from a commemoration. You're not going to buy a car every single time like a big moment happens or like, a shirt like it wears out or like, goes out of style or.
I mean, I have buddies who love cars. Like love. So them buying like the Ford GT. To me, it's like, I don't know. I'm going to go. I have a lunch meeting in 30 minutes. I'm driving my 2004 Miata. Like, I'm pretty stoked on that. And
this guy's worth a few $100 million driving a Miata to lunch.
Sick, dude. If you get a Miata, you know.
Oh yeah, I love it though.
And so no, there's some things like, yes, I did buy a new Vespa scooter. I think it was like 7,000. I was happy with that. But these Rolexes, I've bought them over different moments. Like when I got my pilot's license, I got an Air King. When I got married, I got me and my two other buddies Pepsis. And it's just been fun to look at them. And I think I wasn't always as proud of myself. So I was almost more ashamed of them. And I think sometimes the people you see on social media or on YouTube talking about this stuff can't afford it. Because the real rich people don't talk about it because they don't need to. Like, what's the benefit? For me, yes, people might check out my book. Maybe they'll check out AppSumo. So, and I'm okay sharing it. But I think a lot of these people, there's no incentive for them to do that stuff. And so the ones that are sharing it probably shouldn't be, or we shouldn't be looking to them for the inspiration. But honestly, as I've gotten older, I'm more proud of myself. I'm more proud of sticking with it and the struggles and the successes, meeting great people like you. And so these watches, I'm like, I love them. And like, I do look at them now and like I wear the Batgirl one. And I wear it because me and my buddy got houses, and I'm proud that I can share that with him.
That's cool. If you had to go spend 10 grand on something, what would it be? Where would it be?
As an investment or as an enjoyment?
Enjoyment.
I'm spending $5 grand on bike parts for my brother. That's pretty funny. My first thought was get like an e-bike. I'm having a kid, so I want to be able to pull my kid around on a bike. So I think it'd be kind of cool to get one of these. Like I test rode a mountain e-bike. I haven't, me and you ride, so I have a lot of regular bikes, but I think an e-bike would be cool. I was thinking about getting my wife a hat. I think it's like a few $100, but do you want to spend 10,000? I don't know. It'd probably be a bunch of different little things.
Okay. What's the most fun that you've ever had with money?
Oh, dude. The most fun I ever had with money was 24 hours in Vegas. So about 5 years ago with AppSumo, I said if we launched a product called SumoMe, which we've recently sold. So there's new owners. And I said, if we can get 1 billion impressions on our product across every site we're on in a year, I'll do a 24-hour private jet Vegas trip for the whole team. And I think it was only 4 of us in the company at the time. And now what's crazy today is like almost 100. And that was definitely a low point because everyone quit or we had to fire people that year. But it was just 4 of us, and we worked really hard. And at the end of the year, I think it was $40,000 for 24 hours. It was a private jet round trip. We got to Vegas. We got everyone matching suits, like custom fitted suits from Suit Supply. Then we went to like Andreas Bazaar Meat Place and had like a steak dinner. And Chad told us he's going to marry his wife. We stayed at the Real World Suite. Remember that show, Real World? So we stayed at the Real World Suite in the Hard Rock Casino. And then we went and watched, I think, the Beatles Cirque du Soleil show. I fell asleep. We had like my favorite whiskey and it's a Balcones, which is what Chad likes too, my business partner. And then we had Veuve Clicquot. We had Taco Deli on the flight there. That was a crazy like wow, money is pretty cool. And flying private was amazing. And being able to share that with guys who maybe won't ever get that chance as well. That was a really nice spend of money.
That's cool. What was a key lesson you learned from childhood?
You always got to be asking. If you want something, you have to ask for it. You can't just hope for it. And my parents, even to this day, are, it's literally what I teach chapter 2 in the book. And that if you can get better at asking for things, you can start getting the things you really want. And my parents were kind of always asking. My father's a salesperson, like, you want to buy? Do you want to buy? And my mom is like, can I return it? Or can I have this different? And I think, whether you want a husband, whether you want a better job, whether you want a raise, whether you want an employee, whether you want a customer, it's all about asking. And my parents were, they practiced a lot. And I think that was a good influence on me.
How did you earn your first buck?
I think my first dollar was Costco. Back in the time, I'm from California, it was called Price Club. And I went to Price Club with my father, and I think I bought Snickers bars. I think it was Snickers bars or pencils. I did it both. And I just brought them to elementary school because it was like $20 for the box. And if you could sell them, you can get a lot more if it was like over $1 per bar. And that was probably my first dollar. If not that, it was umpiring baseball games in Little League. I was always hungry for the dollar. Then I worked in the snack shack, those snack shacks they have at the baseball games.
Yeah.
Where they sell the candies. Then I went and worked at a lot of these kind of Office Max, Office Depot jobs, Macy's in the bed sheet sections, a lot of blue collar, I don't know if it's blue collar, just like retail jobs.
What's the dumbest thing you've ever wasted money on?
I got a few. Last year, 2 years ago for AppSumo Black Friday, I spent $1 million cash on a marketing promotion, just advertising. And I think we made back $10,000.
Oh, wow.
So that was really bad. That was a really bad waste of money. I wanted to get a fancy car because I thought that was cool. And so another one was I spent $85,000 on a brand new Jaguar F-Type convertible. And I just got so paranoid about someone door dinging it. And then you literally couldn't pick up anyone from the airport because there's no trunk space. And so I ended up selling it a month later for a $15,000 loss. I just wanted to lose. I just was like, please get rid of it. And then those are definitely two of that come to mind.
What's something you spent way too much money on, but you don't regret it?
I don't regret my cleaning lady. Shout out to Teresa. I don't know if it's a lot. It's like $300 a week. I love it. I love it. Like I hate taking out the trash. I hate doing laundry. I don't mind. I'll do it. If she's busy or something, I do it. But it's such a luxury to spend that much money and have her come do that. Probably also help around the house, like the pool person or the gardener. That's a total luxury. I'd say I also have almost no limit on technology, like zero. Like if it saves you time or if it's what your job is, like almost a zero limit. So like computers, the best cameras, like these are $3,500 camera I'm recording on. I have 2 of them in the room. There's almost no limit on spending on technology. Bicycles too. Like lately, I have 2 matching bikes because my wife and I met her in Spain, so I have one of the same exact bike in Spain, like identical. It's like a $15,000 bike. I love it. I think it's also in these things we spend a lot of money on, or anything you love, like spend more money there. And I was cycling a lot, riding an old bike, and I finally just was like, God, it's so much, and I did it, and it makes me feel proud of myself, and I'm like, dude, you're the man. When I'm on this bike, and I'm like, I love my tushy, and I love like the feel, and I'm so proud of it. So,
Makes you ride faster, huh?
Well, that is it does. There's a little bit of that confidence boost when you're using better machinery.
Yeah. What's a closely held belief that you once had that you recently changed your mind on?
I think there's a lot of different ones I've been exploring. I think a decade ago, I was more paranoid that I would ruin everything. That I'm going to ruin this AppSumo thing. I'm going to lose all this money. I'm going to go, get real drunk or do a bunch of drugs and ruin a lot of this stuff. And I think lately I feel more stable internally and more confident with myself. I'd say a deeply held belief is also just reducing the amount of like negative self-talk and guilt I have. I think a lot of successful people are very critical of themselves. Very critical, like extremely, because it's that creates you to keep going and keep performing. It's something that's probably something I'm still working through, right? Like how to have more empathy, how to have more sensitivity, how to have less guilt about things I'm doing. I think that's something I'm still working on.
Any last words of advice for somebody who's just starting out on their journy?
Yeah, I know you don't swear, Jace, but it's fuck yeah. Like what a cool experience you get to have in this lifetime. And I think I know the biggest thing that people don't realize is that they can do it. I'm seeing so many ordinary people be successful. There's not some special, and I always thought, they have something I don't have, or they know something I don't know, or they've read something I didn't read. And the reality is it's just not true. And so for each person listening, I'd say if you're just getting started, like you can do it. You can 100% do it, but you have to keep trying. You have to keep going. Because there's so many times it would have been, I honestly don't know how I kept doing it. I think I was just so angry to prove people wrong that it kept me going. But you can do it. And I think for the people that are older that have maybe already made some millions, like I would encourage them to do one thing today to enjoy it. Like go balls out on a bottle of wine if you drink. Get the best bottle, for you, Jace, get the best bottle of water you can buy. Like I buy Fiji, but then I refill them because I don't. But like ball out on something for like treat yourself for the hard work you've done and be proud of yourself. So, do something nice for yourself if you've already, made a significant amount of money.
Where can people get $1 Million Weekend?
Yeah, so you can go to milliondollarweekend.com, grab the book. We got some bonuses out there. I do have a podcast. People can jump over there as well. But I think for people just getting started, I think this is the book I wish I would have had when I was 20. Would have saved me a few decades and got me millions a lot sooner.
That's awesome. That's Noah, the net worth of $100+ million. Thanks for on the show today.
Dude, I love you. Good to be here. Good to see you.
You too, man.
Thanks for listening to the Millionaires Unveiled podcast with Jace Mattinson. For more stories, investment opportunities, and information, check out our website, millionairesunveiled.com. See you next time when you'll hear from another everyday millionaire.